Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Poquiz Burke, and this is the Career Slay podcast. Imagine the impact we could have on society if everyone loved what they did. That's what Career Slay is all about. I'm interviewing people who love their jobs and asking them how they got there and what they've learned along the way. We're here to slay the fear in career. My next guest on Career Slay is Mark Lowery. Mark is the owner and founder of Lowery Property Advisors and serves as LPA's president and CEO. LPA is a commercial appraisal and consulting firm completing a wide range of projects throughout the Southwest. Mark began his appraisal career with Wells Fargo Bank, focusing primarily on residential appraisal review. In 2002, he moved to BRG Inc. as a senior appraiser, recruiting and training multiple appraisers. In 2010, Mark founded LPA, which has grown to include multiple offices. Mark has experience with litigation support for legal matters in both federal and state courts. Numerous clients, including attorneys, insurance companies, and lenders nationwide, have relied on his expertise in a review appraiser capacity. Outside of work, Mark has also been called upon as a guest lecturer at his beloved alma mater, Texas A&M. In reflecting upon my conversation with Mark, one of the things that really stuck out to me was his refreshing focus on maintaining a healthy work-life balance and creating a strong people-first company culture. We talk about his entrepreneurship journey from starting his own business with limited resources to scaling it to a 60-person organization. Mark's leadership style is rooted in authenticity and a genuine concern for his people. If you're an aspiring or seasoned entrepreneur, I hope you take away loads of great insights from this episode. Welcome to Career Slay, Mark.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
We actually only had one conversation before this, so
Correct.
We're going to dig into it and get to know you even better.
Sounds good.
So what was your childhood like?
So I was the middle of three boys. Looking back, I think I was kind of your typical middle child, craving attention, somewhat rambunctious, getting into a little bit of trouble, but usually getting away with it because I was the middle child.
I was actually the middle of three girls.
Okay.
So
you can relate.
I can relate.
Yeah.
So what did you decide to study in school?
I really envisioned myself going into marketing or advertising or something kind of like that. So spent about half my time at A&M as a marketing major. Enjoyed that, but I just academically, I was really craving to have something that it's like there was a defined right answer. And so I ended up graduating in finance, really thought I was going to be a banker, had a job offer to go work at Wells Fargo over in Fort Worth, and then 9/11 happened and they went on a hiring freeze.
So what did you end up doing?
I had been considering going into the master's real estate program after graduating A&M. That window had kind of closed, and I actually had a book of former graduates, a catalog, and just started cold calling graduates and actually was able to get an interview with a small appraisal firm. And so I pivoted out of banking and went into a much less glamorous profession of real estate appraisal.
So there was literally a catalog of people. So like the old school LinkedIn.
Yes, a physical printed catalog. Correct. Yeah.
That's crazy. So you start in real estate appraisal. Tell us more. What did you do there?
So I ended up getting a job at a boutique appraisal firm over in Arlington. Worked there for about 9 years. The group I was with only had like 6 employees. So very, very small business, kind of a family. But it was very fast paced, gung ho. Let's see how, the volume, kind of a little bit of a workaholic, kind of a culture. Mm-hmm. Looking back, I was glad I worked at a small group because it exposed me to a wide range of property types.
Give me some examples of that.
Sure. I do hotels, office, retail, car washes, subdivisions, vacant land, churches. If it's a commercial piece of property, there's a really good chance that I've touched it or that our current organization knows a little bit about it, or at least we like to think we do.
So how did you go from, your first role as a real estate appraiser to starting your own company? Tell us more about the journey in between.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. It was, I was at a tough time in my life. In 2010, I ended up navigating a divorce and was kind of feeling like a failure, feeling very lonely and really wanting something different. It was like I wasn't happy in my personal life, wasn't happy professionally because it was just kind of like pure work, all workaholism. Ended up going to a conference put on by Dave Ramsey, thing called Entrepreneurship. He runs a faith-based leadership program Went to that conference and really kind of soul searching. It was in the Bahamas, was there for about a week and had my mind made up. It was like, I'm either going to do this or not. And so I made the decision to start my own business in 2010. Had enough money saved up that I could live for about 2 years if I really needed to, live extremely frugally. And I had my mind made up. I was going to do the very best I could to get the business to succeed for a year. And if it didn't succeed after the first year, I was going to travel Europe for a year. And I have yet to be able to get to go to Europe.
What?
So, so someday I really hope I can schedule that trip. I was actually there in the back of my mind. It was really weird, kind of a weird psychology, because part of me kind of hoped the business was not going to succeed, so I could go get my year abroad.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, and I love. Sure. Thank you for being so open and sharing your story. So when you went to that conference, like, did you already have an idea in mind of what you wanted to do, or was it just kind of like, I want to work for myself?
I was pretty sure that I had what it took to attract some clients, but I wasn't sure, until you jump off the cliff and start calling the clients and they're actually engaging you. You really just kind of don't know. And I also, my backup plan too was I knew that more than likely I could get a job at a bank and pay my mortgage if I absolutely had to.
So coming out of that retreat, what did you decide to create?
I decided to start a commercial appraisal firm. Gave a lot of thought to what does the name of the company need to be. I thought maybe Lowery Property Appraisers, Lowery Property Consultants, and then ended up coming up with Lowery Property Advisors. The reason we chose the name of that company, or I chose the name of that company, is it gives us the flexibility to do a lot of different things, not just appraisal. We've got 2 major business lines right now. Really, we've got our kind of more traditional lender business line where you've got any major bank within the state of Texas. There's a pretty good chance we're probably on their radar screen. If they're looking to collateralize commercial real estate, we're probably on their radar screen. The other business line that we've got is a right-of-way and eminent domain practice. So if the state of Texas is going to widen I-35 and they've got to take some land, they've got to get appraisers involved to help negotiate with those landowners. And that kind of leads into some litigation support work that we also do, private party kind of work. And then we also have a group that does some tax consulting as well.
Those first few years, what was it like? What were some of the highs and lows of that experience?
Yeah, great question. The first year, it's funny. I wore almost all the hats. I was writing the appraisals. Back then we had to physically bind these appraisals and ship them out. So I was doing almost every single job. I had a part-time accountant, and she would come in a couple days a week. And it's funny. I reflect back on that time, and I literally paid her to listen to me talk, because I think in hindsight, I was probably pretty lonely. And so she would come in for half a day, and for probably the first 2 hours, we would just talk about stuff.
and here's my fee.
Yeah, no, exactly. And because when you're a one-person business and you're, just all alone all the time, and you've got one employee that comes in a couple days a week, and you're an extroverted person like me, you're just going to talk to that person. Gosh, it just feels like so long ago now. I mean, when I was a 1.5 person organization, now we've got about 60 team members. But yeah, the first year, definitely kind of navigating some loneliness. And as much as I was trying to escape workaholism, ended up having to still navigate some of that, because we started getting more work than I anticipated that we were going to get.
So once you started getting that momentum, like, what was the moment where you were like, I'm going to hire my first person? When did you realize that?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Probably about 6 months in. And luckily for me, the economy was actually still fairly soft. And I think that helped our ability to be able to recruit as a very, very small business with no benefits, and being able to hire some people fairly early on that were pretty sharp people.
So in scaling from a 1-person organization to now a 60-person organization, how has your role evolved into the CEO?
At every level, my role continues to evolve. On a day-to-day basis now, I'm focusing mostly on development of other leaders. I work on strategy. I do a lot of business development. So I spend a lot of time talking to clients, and it's definitely a different role than it was even 2 years ago.
Tell us a little bit more about your leadership style and your vision for the company.
I think I have a very casual, laid-back leadership style. I never really spent much time in my professional career in a corporate environment. So I think it doesn't come naturally for me to be, for lack of a better term, corporate. And I tend to be somewhat disorganized in the sense that I like popping into people's offices and just asking them how are things going that day and just talking about what's going on. I probably need to shift a little more corporate if we're going to continue to scale.
No, be yourself.
but that's kind of my style right now, I think. Yeah.
And what would you say makes LPA different from other companies?
I think we are far more team-oriented than the majority of our competition. A lot of our competitors tend to be a little more siloed, and because of their internal structure, some of their offices end up competing with one another. The way we're structured is much more team-oriented, and we're very, very open to moving work between offices and helping one another out.
Yeah, team collaboration is so important, especially, as you're growing a company and trying to maintain that culture. We talked a lot about how, you're very cognizant about creating a strong culture. Tell me more about what does it take to do that and what's your philosophy on that?
I believe as an organization scales, maintaining consistent culture becomes exponentially more difficult. It's not a linear line. It's exponential. And the reason is because the number of interrelations go up exponentially. And I think we have to be extremely intentional on scheduling events. We get busy and those things they really, really, really have to be authentic. Whether you're doing a service project, getting people authentically bought into wanting to be at things is so critical. Like, for example, we're really big on our Christmas party. We always invite spouses. It's something that we've done the entire time we've been in existence. We don't do separate Christmas parties. We bring everybody into one physical location, but it is not mandatory. Mm-hmm. I think the moment you make a company event feel mandatory, now you're at the company party. Yeah. It's not really a truly fun party. If someone's got a family thing that they need to be going and doing at the same weekend that our company Christmas party is on, that is more important. And family is one of our core values.
So family being one of your core values, I know there's a lot of talk about saying that a company is like a family. Yeah. When you say family is one of your core values, what do you mean by that?
Our organization does a great job of, understanding that family might mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And really, if you're around people that you care about and that you love, that's your family, whether it's a traditional structure or not. And so I think for our organization, being able to put the pieces in place where we can truly give people some life balance. I think that's a big buzzword right now. Yeah. It's probably a little overused, but I really like to believe that we put our money where our mouth is.
That's awesome. That shows a lot about who you are as a person to reinforce that work-life balance from the top down. We talked a lot about how your initial work experiences, you were almost like a workaholic, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you prevent that type of behavior from infusing into the culture in your own company?
Well, we put in place a PTO policy. And ironically, the reason we put in place a PTO policy back in 2015 was because people weren't taking any. Before we had it, it wasn't really quantified, and it was we never really labeled it as unlimited, but it kind of was. And I think people were bought in and excited about what they were doing professionally and trying to produce and all that. And we realized that people would take, there'd be a year go by and they'd only taken off 2 or 3 business days. And that's just not healthy. You need to take some time away. So yeah, it helped to put that in place.
Yeah. There's so much research out there about how taking time off actually makes you more productive in the end because you're less burnt out, less stress, less anxiety, creates more creativity and all that stuff.
Difficult to quantify, but I passionately agree with what you just said. Yes.
So you've been an entrepreneur for now how many years?
14 years.
14 years. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten as an entrepreneur?
Well, so now that I think about it, I may have been an entrepreneur a little longer than 14 years. I ran a small painting company when I was in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is the best advice I was given was actually when I was running that little bitty painting business. A mentor of mine who owned a fairly sizable construction company in Austin told me one time, he said, put down the tools. And in that moment, he was saying, put down the paintbrush. And I think that advice can translate to so many different businesses. And what he's really talking about is delegating. If you're the person that's writing the appraisals, there's nothing wrong with that. There are days when I miss actually writing appraisals. Mm-hmm. But if you're the person who owns a business and you're still doing the tasks, you can only scale so far.
Yeah.
So I think that putting down the tools was probably the best advice I got.
Wow, that's really great advice. And I love your point about delegation because I've seen through my career a lot of people move up and up and up because they're star players, right? But they never learn how to move from being the star player to being the coach. So, any advice on how you might be a better coach?
Oh, wow. Be intentional about it, let go, and be extremely authentic and honest with the people that report to you.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for a leader telling their person that works for them, I struggle with delegating. I'm having a hard time letting go, but I believe in you and I think you can do this. And just building that authentic trust and honesty with your team, I think goes a long, long way because they're going to understand it humanizes the leader.
Yeah.
And that way the associate level people can understand that they're a person too. They're flawed. And they're trying to get better at that.
Yeah, I love your point about authenticity. And I think that when you can show up authentically, then you can lead your team in a way that's very, true to who you are, and they can be themselves, and it creates that safe space for them to flourish, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, in a leadership position, carving out time to spend time with your team members, I think as a leader, when you put on the calendar, hey, we're going to go have lunch a week and a half from now, I think that has a different posture than, let's say it's some random day and you can kind of tell there's a little bit of bandwidth that day in the morning saying, hey, can we go grab lunch today? And it's kind of this more spontaneous thing. And I think it doesn't feel as HR-ish if you don't put it on the calendar 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about being real human people and building those relationships.
Yeah. Agreed.
So what would you say is your why that drives you forward in your career?
My why is people. I get a lot of joy in investing time in our leaders and our associates and seeing them experience success. A matter of fact, I have a sign in my office that says, remember why you started. And that was why I started, because I wanted to create an organization based on teamwork where you didn't have to work nights and weekends. I hung that picture in my office back in 2021. The demand was extremely, extremely high. We were doing very, very, very well. And I could feel myself getting a big head. And it was like, I need to hang this up to remind myself what I'm connected to and why I started.
Yeah.
People.
Wow. That's super honest. And thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people and leaders can relate to that, especially when you see a lot of success, finding a mechanism to keep yourself grounded and going back to your why. What were some of the wins and challenges in starting a company?
Oh, wow. I think early on, we got some nice wins with some pretty big clients. Sizable lenders really wanted to use our organization. So that was really nice. One of the challenges I remember was recruiting. We really needed to put in place some benefits, 401k match, some of that kind of stuff. And as we navigated that type of a time frame where we were struggling on recruiting, it was interesting because it felt like at that time we recruit a lot of students right out of school. Usually you've got one parent that's the gunslinger and they're saying, go work for that small company. You can get a 401k later, and then you've got the other parent that's the more conservative, and you need to get a big company on your resume. And that's really important. And the stability that might come with that, And so prior to putting in place a lot of the benefits that we've got, we could only make one parent happy. And now we can make both parents happy. Yeah. So it really, putting in place those pieces helped us on recruiting a lot.
That's wonderful. And and I think going back to just the theme of this episode, it's going back to the people, right? It's like when you can put great recruiting in place and you get good people, and then you can create a better culture from those people.
Agreed.
So looking back, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Stop and smell the roses. And I probably need to give my 45-year-old self that same advice still. I think it's, you have to be very intentional to make time for family and friends and be involved in other things. It's not all about work. And I think that's for sure what I would be screaming at my 20-year-old self.
Yeah, no, I love that. Stop and smell the roses. I mean, intentionality, the authenticity, I feel like you exude just this very balanced view on life. And it's very refreshing to see from a leader.
Well, thank you.
So if you had to sum up your career in 3 words, what would those be?
I would say unexpected, fulfilling, and fun.
Tell me a little bit more.
Unexpected. When I got out of school, I wanted to go work for a bank. I wanted to work in a big, tall building. I wanted to wear a suit to work. I rarely wear a suit.
Yeah.
For the longest time running my own business, I worked in a one-story building. And I just envisioned myself working for this big company and trying to climb the corporate ladder.
Yes.
And my career is at an extremely different path. If you'd asked me when I was 25 years old, would I be self-employed running an organization with 60 employees? I would say there's a 0% chance of that. Fulfilling, I think I'm just going to go straight to the people part. I think, in the role that I get to be in, when I get to talk to someone and extend them an offer and hopefully change their life in a very positive way, there's just nothing more fulfilling than that. Fun, our culture. I think that being able to go do our events and plan fun things and it be, where business and pleasure can kind of cross, and being able to, in a leadership position, be able to help facilitate that is really, really fun.
In a leadership position, you're always trying to become better as a leader. Mm-hmm. How do you strive to be a better leader, and what do you do to get better? Yeah,
I love that question. Starting at the beginning of this year, I joined a Vistage group and if you're not familiar with Vistage, it's a one business day a month. CEOs meet in a confidential setting, and iron sharpens iron, right? So we have the chance to bring the walls down and talk about tough things that we're navigating. And then the other thing, we did a leadership summit this spring that was a homegrown, internal-based summit that was designed to empower and train our mid-level leaders. But I really felt like I took a lot away from that as well, trying to bring myself forward. And then for a long time, our senior level leadership group has done biannual offsites. We'll take a weekend and we'll hire a facilitator that really pushes us and helps us think through where we're going in the next 3 to 5 years.
That's awesome. So I'm hearing, two things. It's not just about improving yourself as a leader and making yourself better, but also finding that little cohort of people that you can build trust and exchange ideas with. But it's also about bringing up your leaders so that you can be, better as a team, right?
I passionately agree with that. And I will tell you, leading people that are doing tasks, it has its own challenges. Leading leaders whose people are doing tasks is a different challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's even more fulfilling. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it gives like almost a halo effect to going back to your why and your purpose. So
agreed.
Well, Mark, it was really nice having this conversation with you. And I really appreciate you just taking us through your leadership philosophy, what you envision for the company, and just your focus on people and culture. It's been a wonderful time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks.
The Career Slay podcast is a co-production of Career Slay and Wild Reply, produced by Michael Burke. If you like the show, subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you're looking for more one-on-one career advice, consider booking a coaching discovery call with me at careerslay.com.